Hello, welcome to the program. Ahead, it's considered a global fashion Bible. And as Vogue Australia celebrates 50 years, we speak to News Magazine's Group Director of Advertising, Jane Nichols, about the outlook for the prestige title. Plus, Ozstar's first half profit, hey, it's Saturday, resurrected, the changing newspaper model in the US, and outdoor media growth stalls. But first, to the row over Austereo's Today FM Sydney breakfast show's handling of a radio segment where a 14-year-old girl revealed on air that she was raped. The girl was strapped to a lie detector during the program and asked by her mother if she was sexually active.
Okay, have you had sex? Oh, okay, I got raped when I was 12 years old.
Right. And is that the only experience you've had?
Hosts Kyle and Jackie O have apologised for putting the girl in the situation, and to anyone they've offended, they insist it wasn't a publicity stunt.
The most important thing that we wanted to say is that we are sorry to that girl, and
we are sorry.
An unfortunate situation.
Yeah, and I've apologised on a couple of occasions.
I just wish that girl had never been put in that position. I wish that that it didn't turn out that way.
Well, for more on this, we're joined by our co-host, James Manning, editor and publisher of Media Week magazine. James, clearly this should never have gone to air. Huge row, a lot of criticism directed at Today FM for this.
Yeah, and much of it correctly too aimed at them, because they've obviously done the wrong thing, and as they acknowledge now, all parties agreed this should never have happened. It's come from a radio show that's always pushed the envelope, sailed fairly close to the edge. The lie detector, it's been running for about 6 or 7 years. I think they started it maybe on their afternoon show or even their evening program. Worked a treat, gets them lots of ratings, and that the wrong thing was obviously involving someone, a younger person. They did the pre-interview, but as Kyle said, well, that's not the sort of question you usually ask in a pre-interview, with the. So it was,
very, very.
So
badly
I just have to
handled.
be careful involving younger people, I guess. And of course the mother, But again, she could be a better mum, but it's hard to come down on her too hard, So.
And obviously, I mean, a lot of calls from the regular Kyle should be sacked to even the licence for the station should be withdrawn.
It's hard to see that's ever going to happen, but I'm sure there'll be definitely some repercussions, and there'll be some sort of penalty, and there'll be some sort of formalities the station will have to go through in future to ensure this doesn't happen. Some strict guidelines will probably come in, much as they have been in the past for AM radio. They'll look at, there'll be some sort of inquiry, no doubt. I'm not sure what that will achieve, but they'll bring in some sort of guidelines, and stations will have to, follow those.
But interesting too that this row has actually also then gone over onto 3AW, and Neil Mitchell receiving a phone call from John Laws this morning. Yeah,
well, he was getting stuck into Austereo this morning and saying, look, Sydney radio's a bit out of control. Look, in the past they've caused lots of grief with cash for comment, and he mentioned something about John Laws. Somebody must have rung Laws and said, look, Neil Mitchell's getting stuck into you. Laws rang the station. And then the two had a bit of argy-bargy over the cash for comment, and it's quite an interesting grab. I think it's up on the 3AW website if anybody wants to have a listen. But it's a bit of fascinating airtime.
It sure is. And I mean, what about Kyle Sandiland's future? Safe despite this?
Well, I think so. I mean, the guy's not generally liked by people in the media, well, at least the ones that he doesn't work for. The people he works for don't have a problem with him because he brings in a lot of revenue and a lot of ratings, and I think that will continue. He'll obviously be a bit more careful, and he's probably up for the criticism. He dishes it out, but he's the sort of guy who can take it. His co-host, Jackie O, I think she's probably going to really knocked around by this, and from the sound of her on air this morning, she was, obviously shaken, and perhaps so she should have been, and she'll maybe, cast a bigger eye across what comes on the program.
Yeah, it was interesting listening to Kyle this morning, making very clear that his response, which has been so heavily criticised, was because he was floundering. He didn't know what to say.
Yeah,
but,
he certainly regrets that initial comment we just heard then, that after she revealed her past, and he came out and said something that he's the first to acknowledge that he shouldn't have said that.
Yes, all right. Let's just move on now, because of course some media moves this week, and Fairfax and Seven have lost a star performer to the AFL, to a coaching role.
Yes, Nathan Buckley, a former star player for Collingwood, has been working in the media since he retired. The last, well, probably most or much of this year, the media in Melbourne has been obsessed, or the sports media has been obsessed about, will Buckley go into coaching? Because anything connected with the Collingwood Football Club is big news in Melbourne. It sells your papers, it gets you people listening to your radio, watching your TV shows. And it's finally this week he's come out, he's revealed he's going to be working for Eddie Maguire down at the Collingwood Football Club as an assistant coach to Mick Maguire, with the ultimately taking over. But Fairfax Radio lose one of their, their best sports analysts, and of course the Seven Network, he worked on a Friday night on their coverage, so we won't be available to do it. I think he starts work November 1, so we'll see through his commitments this year.
Just newspapers, interesting, because we saw some earnings results come out of the US in particular, and also the UK, but really showing that changing shape of the old media.
Yeah, the business model's certainly changing around. I think at the New York Times, the ad revenue is now equal to the circulation revenue. It used to outstrip it, used to be 2 for 1 ad dollars for circulation income. And if the New York Times manages to work out how to charge people for online content, well, you'll see that circulation revenue will continue to climb, and presumably ad revenue will leap back again when the ad market recovers, but it'll probably never be the same as it used to be.
And just finally as well, to the outdoor media sector, it's been one of those good performers, but, well, not anymore.
It's held up, yeah, but it's I think, what was it, down 13%. That's first half figures. The sectors have changed a little bit in outdoor, so it's hard to compare sector on sector year on year. But the big sectors now are roadside, they call it billboards, and roadside other, which is what street furniture used to be called. That's bus shelters and the like. They're the two big dominant areas. The first 6 months of this year, they both earned around $70 million each. The smaller sectors, transport and retail, that's stuff in shopping centres and all that.
All right, let's just quickly turn to the TV sector and have a look at what the ratings did for week 30, turning to the free-to-air results first. And as you can see there, this, of course, the week where MasterChef just totally dominated there, number 1 and 2 for 10. But then really 7 in there with a lot packed to the rafters at number 3 most watched, and turning the page, a couple of its new offerings as well, Airways and World's Strictest Parents doing well. Turning to the subscription TV, and NRL taking the top 3 spots for Fox Sports 2, turning the page, and Fox 8, a couple of winners in there, Family Guy, America's Next Top Model, and also the Princess Protection Program for Disney Channel. They're at number 9. So looking at the TV sector, now interesting, some of the commentary this week, the speculation, well, and also a bit of the criticism about Seven and its delay to the launch of its digital channel.
Yeah, one of the loudest critics was Foxtel's Brian Walsh, who came out and said, look, he doesn't think they know what they're doing. There's no plan there yet. A lot of media buyers expressed their frustration that there hadn't been any clear indication from Seven yet where they'll be going. And 10's come out with one, the sports channel, of course. 9's revealed Go, which I think we'll be talking a bit about next week ahead of its launch. 7, as yet, no clear news for the market. There's no real rush for them to do it, of course. I mean, that they would say, look, advertisers, aren't you happy enough with the ratings we're delivering you on our main channel? The advertisers aren't rushing, as the media buyers have told us on this program before. There's no rush to the digital channels because they're going to be very small audiences for a significant amount of time. So it's a bit hard to understand why people are really caring too much about it. It's nice to know, but there's no real pressure for them to get it up, I don't think.
And interesting to see Charlotte Dawson's got the job of hosting the reality series of The Contender, first one here in Australia on Fox 8, starting production next month.
Yeah, that's great news for Foxtel because it's going to broaden that audience a lot. Of course, she's one of the stars of Australia's Next Top Model, delivers a lot of the best lines on that show, and I think she'll continue to do that. She'll have some real fun with the boxing puns and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's going to attract a lot of viewers.
Yeah, it will be interesting to watch that one. Now, also too, Aussie drama. We've talked a lot about local production being such a big feature now of the TV landscape here, and it was a big week for it, particularly on free to air.
Yeah, well, this Sunday night for 9 are bringing in Rescue Special Ops, a drama action series from Southern Star, putting it on at 8:30 Sunday night. It's very crucial for 9 that this gets away to a good start. They've had a lot of good publicity. It's got some great reviews, so it's not worth thinking about if this show doesn't work for 9, but I think it will, because Les Hill, there's a couple of guys from the first Underbelly series and there's a lot of goodwill from the viewers to that show still, and they'll be definitely tuning in, I think, to see how it goes.
And also what City's Homicide
City
returning for
Homicide will
7
be
as well.
starting back the week after on Monday evenings for 7, yeah, and that's always done with us. I think it's third season. It's always done well in the ratings, and it should do the same business again this year.
Now, interesting, we were talking about this last week, reports that Hey Hey It's Saturday would be coming back. Now, didn't you suggest, James, that it probably wouldn't?
We're out of time. Yeah, I think we said
It's
something
back.
like, yeah, this show will never come back, and what do you know, it's back. Well, it's back for 2, and they are going to be sort of best of specials. And Daryl has said, look, he hasn't really signed anybody yet, so it might be just him out there by himself with a lot of clips. I'm sure he'll get some people back. Some of the talent have gone elsewhere. Red Simons works a lot for the 7 Network. The guy who plays the ostrich, Ernie Carroll, he's 80 now, so I'm not sure if he'll be coming back either, but you never know. But they're putting it on a Tuesday night, which is a bit strange, so presumably they won't call it Hey Hey It's Saturday. So they might just call it Hey Hey, or I'm not sure. But if it does well there, then they'll have a big think about, well, will we bring it back? Where can it go? You know, but there's still a lot of water to cross before the show's back for good, I think.
Yes, all right. Now, just looking at 9-2, I mean, how's it been going in the ratings? Well, so far in the past week, I mean, it's hit a couple of lows, hasn't it?
It's had a really tough week. It's a very unlike 9 to go below with a 20% share all people. It's had 3 nights in the last week where that's happened. So they're swinging a lot of changes. I think Farmer Wants a Wife's back next week. Domestic Blitz is returning to the schedule. So things should pick up a little bit for them, but they certainly need to. And I think 10's about to reveal their second half programming, and there's some big things happening. MasterChef, the hint is that it'll be going to Wednesday nights. Magda Sabansky, there's been a lot of speculation. She has signed to 10 for a new show, so we'll find out about that on the weekend.
And interesting too, there's this whole debate about just where MasterChef sits in terms of ratings history here in Australia as well. Is it first? Is it 15th?
Yeah, it was interesting. David Dale at the Sydney Morning Herald's always very good at chronicling, how popular shows are. We talked about MasterChef was the biggest non-sport program post 2001. Of course, they don't count 2000 because it was pre-Oztam, and plus it was the Sydney Olympic Games where there's just so many programs that did huge numbers. But David Dale's done this list, and MasterChef rated 15th on that list, and his calculation was percentage of sets in use as opposed to the Oztam figure these days of thousands of people watching.
And what 10's still faring okay post MasterChef as well in ratings?
Yeah, they're doing pretty well. They actually won Sunday night this week, and that was without MasterChef, without Rove. So yeah, things are going well for them, and I think there's some good shows they've got coming up in the next few weeks, and I think they'll continue to put some pressure on the other 2 networks.
Yeah, very interesting to watch. All right, we are just going to turn now, of course, to news with the reporting season underway. Regional pay TV company Ozstar posting a $35.5 million profit for the first half as it reduced churn, or the number of customers cancelling their subscription, and added subscribers. CEO John Porter also reaffirmed full-year guidance of 10 to 15% EBITDA growth.
We are working towards a very exciting relaunch of our service toward the end of this year. There's a substantial amount of product developments in the pipeline. Unfortunately, it's still somewhat premature to speak specifically of those, but suffice it to say that it's probably the most significant impact to our product offering since the digital launch in 2004. Starting with the launch of our next generation high definition PDR and the programming that will support that, a substantial range of new high definition programming, the addition of a range of targeted standard definition channels, and special events like starting with the Vancouver Winter Olympics, which we'll be partnering with Foxtel on to deliver our customers across 4 high-definition channels in February. It's going to be a very exciting time, and we think it's going to have an enormous impact on our ability to continue to grow our subscriber base.
With the market reaction to that Ozstar result, here's Chris Weston from IG Markets.
You know, the first of the media companies to report during reporting season. You know, this is a stock that's been very much in favour with analysts alike. It's been giving shareholders a fantastic return. I mean, this year we've seen year to date the stock up nearly 30%. If you compare that to, if you compare Austar to the market, which is up 12%, you can see the returns that this company's been given. I mean, it's got a market cap of 1.1 billion, so it's pretty. It's not really seen as a bellwether in the market, but certainly, you know, the numbers that we've seen today on the face of it have beaten expectations quite easily. We did see them confess to the market on the 8th of June that their EBITDA would be for growth between 10 and 15%. So they've beaten that. They beat most analysts. They came in with 13% growth there, 115 million. I think Citigroup saw that around about 107 million. Goldman Sachs 104. So they beat on that perspective. The first half profit was 35.5 million. I think, you know, that the bullish estimate was Credit Suisse, who came out with about 24 million. So they beat on that side of things as well. You know, I think they didn't pay a dividend, but the market wasn't expecting them to pay a dividend, so that was largely priced in as well. I mean, if you look at the price action on the stock, it opened strongly. We've seen momentum take that up to nearly 5% gains today on that stock. So people's clearly seeing this as a good result from the company. If you look at their operating cash flow, up 28%, that was better than expected, and that's a very positive metric that people look at. If we look at their churn rate, 1.27%, that was better than the 1.35 forecast by brokers as well, and that's another key metric that these pay-per-view channels, you know, look at very, very closely. You know, the subscriber rate probably not as good as what most people were hoping. We were hoping for around 9,000, but you know, it still came out with a favourable 6,479, which is still positive. You know, the stock does still have the potential to grow. We saw it trade for a resistance level of 92 cents today. So on a technical basis, you're probably seeing this go up to about $1.10. I think this is still on an outperform basis by most brokers at the moment. So this result will only enforce that. We also said them say that they were well positioned for the NBN. So longer term traders will probably see good growth potential in the stock as well. We've also seen more speculation about what's going to happen with this stock. We've seen them under a bit of pressure. They're down today as well. We saw CamWest in Canada last night down 12%. They're approaching their deadline for the debt extension. They've got to sort their debt problems out by tomorrow to come out with a solution. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with them. I mean, there's still speculation they're going to be a forced seller of 10. Macquarie Media and News Corp are obviously the two choices which are favourites in most people's eyes. We did come out with RBS came out with a sell recommendation to their clients on the stock, saying that the capital raising was the most likely way of sorting out their debt covenant. They shouldn't have too many problems with their debt covenants for the August period, but it's the 2010 period that they need to raise money for. So we could see them raise capital on those grounds, but I think most people will say that, you know, if you can buy 10 on a discount, then it will be well supported. You know, they'd remove a lot of their balance sheet risks. So if we do see a capital raising from the stock, then I think it will be well supported. People will want to buy this on momentum, given their ratings momentum going forward.
Stay with us. Coming up on Media Week, how the future's looking for a fashion Bible that's turning 50. Welcome back. Vogue Australia is turning 50 and it's planning a big celebration, including a special September issue to mark the occasion. After half a century, how is the magazine adapting to the digital age, and how are ad pages in the prestige title holding up in the downturn? Well, to tell us more, we're joined by Jane Nichols, the Group Director of Advertising at News Magazines, which publishes the Australian edition of Vogue, and of course Media Week's James Manning. Great to have you in, Jane, and obviously quite a milestone for Vogue Australia. It's just incredible to look back. I think we've actually got the first cover back in 1959. It must be quite amazing to look back over the years at Vogue Australia.
It's just been incredible. It's such a wonderful way of just taking everybody back inside the brand, and the passion that exists through the business is just incredible. But they're beautiful covers, and they're just as beautiful today. And
it was Maggie Tabberer, I believe, on that first cover back in 1959.
Yeah.
So yeah,
she worked really closely with Helmut Newton. Fabulous.
Quite amazing.
Tell us a little bit about your special issue. I think it's out Wednesday of next week. Is that correct?
It is.
Biggest issue of all time, or equal biggest issue of all time.
That's right.
Give us the specs. How many pages? Highlights of the advertisements in addition. Have you got a lot of new people trying out the magazine?
James, it is the biggest ever issue of Vogue. It's about double the size of a usual issue, so that's incredible in this climate in particular. But beautiful pages, but all sorts of creative executions and just wonderful, wonderful work. But we've also achieved a milestone in terms of revenues in this marketplace that we are completely staggered by. We're 65% up on same issue last year, and I have to say, in terms of our budgeting, we really didn't expect to achieve that, and we have, without exception, all of our most loyal global luxury brand advertisers are in the issue. They've come on board in a really bespoke way, which is how we wanted to do things. We didn't take any generic packages to market. But as you suggested, it's also been a really fabulous opportunity for us to bring on board some quite different advertisers, quite different categories of advertisers too.
How difficult, I mean, asking you about how difficult it is in a downturn, but also whether you can tell us anything about who's going to be on any of those covers, or just some more about it. I know it's not out till next week, so.
Yeah, no, my life would be on the line, Bridie. If I told you that, you'll have to wait.
Okay. But certainly
there'll be a very big reveal, and I know that it would be lovely to tell you today, but we need to keep that surprise.
Can you talk any specifics about dollars and in terms of, I mean, the magazine, does it pull about $1 million a good issue in ad revenue?
Oh, look, it varies with seasonality. It varies with seasonality dramatically.
Okay. What's September normally like for you?
It's our biggest, September and
it's
March.
the biggest issue in the US that's famous, isn't it? The September edition.
That's right, because it's the launch of season, so you have September and March are your biggest issues. It's well in excess of $1 million, our outcome.
Yeah.
Well in excess.
Yes.
And if you consider that I've just told you that we're 65% ahead of September, our biggest issue last year, I think, you know, in an economic downturn, it just speaks to the loyalty of the title, the status of the title in the market.
It's interesting because it was only a few years back that Karl Lagerfeld actually guest edited. But I mean, just looking at the difference now to how difficult it has been to attract those advertisers. Obviously, it's a prestige title. You're saying that obviously this issue, but it is a special issue, isn't it? I mean, how difficult has it been though, and how difficult do you foresee it being?
Well, it's a really interesting aspect of this market, and it's played out into the early part of this financial year for us, where titles that are core titles, where they're number one in their category, where they're, in this case, iconic, what's tending to happen in the market is, yes, there are often less marketing dollars available, but the core titles are doing relatively well in that. And I think in the context of, I guess, realising that, not only is September fantastic, but we've hit our budget for July, August, and it looks like we'll get our October budget as well. So it's not even about cannibalisation. It's an iconic core title. It's not peripheral. So in terms of the fashion market, cosmetics, toiletries, they need to be there even if they're cutting back in with other titles and potentially other media.
Do you ride the wave of publicity that this edition will bring, or you got some marketing initiatives that you'll also get out there and push it hard to consumers?
We're doing an immense number of things. Yes, publicity is a key part of it. Our PR machine is in full swing, and we'll expect to see a great deal of, and are seeing a great deal of television, radio, online, print. But in addition to that, we have a very big party on Friday night. Expecting about 800 guests at Fox Studios. We've got everyone flying in from all over the world, models, designers, artists, writers. It'll be the party of the year. We've produced a 320-page, beautiful, hard copy coffee table book. Our editor, Kirsty Clements, with Lee Tulloch, have produced that. We've produced a limited edition handbag with Oroton. We've produced our Barbie doll with Mattel. Barbie turned 50 with us, so that's been incredible. The handbags and the Barbies have all sold out. Major schedule of advertising across the News Limited properties and retail
So you can use that strength of news now. You're part of the group.
Absolutely,
there.
Absolutely, and they want it. It is such a, it's real news. It's a great celebration.
We're just running out of time, but I did just want to ask you, because we were just watching some of the online runway footage from previous fashion shows. I mean, how important is that now to meet that demand for digital content, and how do you sort of differentiate, and is that something that you now offer advertisers, multi-platform?
Absolutely we do. So vogue.com.au is an integral part of what we go to market with, and across our broader business, our online properties are very much about being more relevant in the market now. So whether it's in our food space with taste.com.au, we need to be making sure that we're doing all of those things well, and that we're selling our brands, and that we're selling content with brands in a expanded way, but also eventing and expositions and anything else that we can do to give dimension to the communication. Imperative. In fact, you wouldn't survive if you didn't start really doing that seriously.
Just finally, maybe there's been you look after a lot of other titles at News, and there's been a bit of turmoil at ACP in the editorial ranks. Not so many headlines about you guys. How are you finding the market at the moment overall for the rest of the?
It's settling down. It's certainly, it's still a pretty volatile market, and it's a relatively short-term market. And it really depends on what category you're talking about. In the food category, it's where we're leaders by a long shot, absolutely performing. But it does vary depending on the status of a title. So is it core, is it not? And also the category of advertising that you're dependent on. But our circulations, unlike some of our competitors, our circulations and readerships, by nature of our title, by nature of the fact that there's more nesting, lots of home entertainment, are actually doing very well.
So the market leader in the sector is good, but if you're further down the ranks,
it's harder.
It's tougher.
It's harder.
And just quickly, I mean, what did you make of those appointments at ACP? I mean, there seems to be this trend, perhaps, to more newspaper-backed people taking over those editor roles. Helen McCabe at Australian Women's Weekly and Fiona Connolly at Women's Day. I mean, is this something you think is now going to be the case, rather than coming from a sales background?
It doesn't really surprise me, because it's about having disposable content or not in today's market. If you can get your information in all sorts of other ways, particularly when there's a difficult economy, then you will. So to make it more relevant, I guess, by breaking news doesn't surprise me, probably quite smart. It'll be interesting to see how consumers like it.
Oh, we've run out of time, I'm afraid, but it's been great to have you in, Jane Nichols from News Magazines. And obviously, congratulations on the 50th anniversary of Vogue Australia. And James Manning, as always, editor and publisher of Media Week magazine. And that's all we've got time for from the team here. Thanks for your company.